As the West carefully watches Russian moves in the Ukraine crisis, an Air Force general sounding a warning about Russian military maneuvers.
He says Russia is ramping up its air activity over the Pacific Ocean, even making claims a U.S. fighter jet intercepted a Russian aircraft over Guam. KCAL 9 political reporter Dave Bryan is live at USC with the story for us. Dave?
Well, Lena, Sylvia, we talked to a Russian expert here just a short while ago. He works in the Center for International Studies. He says Russian President Vladimir Putin is now sort of poking the U.S., testing to see what the response will be militarily, but primarily economically. But the news, nonetheless, must be very unsettling for many Californians.
General Hawk Carlyle.
When U.S. Air Force General Herbert Hawk Carlyle spoke this week in Washington, D.C., he delivered a chilling message for Californians. The Russians are coming.
What Russia is doing in Ukraine and Crimea has a direct effect on what's happening in Asia Pacific. Some of the things we've seen is their long-range aviation and the increase in that. Those areas depicted in green. They've come with their long-range aviation out to the coast of California. They circumnavigated Guam.
General Carlyle said the number of long-range Russian airborne patrols in the Pacific region included a Tupolev Tu-95 strategic bomber, which was intercepted over Guam by a U.S. F-15 fighter jet. And some of the Russian flights, he said, extended all the way to the California coastline. Professor Ben Graham at USC's Center for International Studies says he believes Russian leader Vladimir Putin is testing the United States. But he says it's a risky strategy.
If we have sort of some of these aggressive military sorties up the coast of California or something, the last thing you want is to actually have some 19-year-old Russian fighter pilots shoot down an American jet or something. You know, when you start playing these games, there's always the risk of someone going too far and provoking at a level you didn't intend.
The strategy may raise fears that Putin is determined to reestablish the old Soviet Union, which could spark another Cold War. But Professor Graham says that's unlikely because the Russia of 2014 is nowhere near as powerful as the Soviet Union was in the 1950s.
He's too weak to do that. I mean, the Cold War emerged between a very powerful Soviet Union and a powerful West, and now we have a powerful West and a not so powerful Russia. You know, there's an upper limit on how severe Putin can make this conflict before it sinks Russia economically.
And that's the vulnerability, the professor says, because Russia is vulnerable economically, and both Russia and the U.S. and the West are now testing one another to see how far they will go with economic sanctions and what impact that will have on Russia. We're live at USC. Dave Bryan, KCAL 9 News.
The largest missile arsenals in the world are Russia, China, and North Korea in that order, and most of them are pointed at either us or our friends and allies.
Does it bother you that Russian military jets are flying near the California coastline? Well, it has the U.S. military concerned and on guard. Good evening. I'm Ashley Ritchie.
And I'm Monty Torres. Thank you for joining us. If you think what's happening between Russia and Ukraine is a world away, you'd be mistaken. KMPH Fox 26 News reporter Eric Rosales did some digging and uncovered Russia's activity in the Pacific has increased dramatically.
The general in charge of U.S. Air Forces in the Pacific says U.S. military planes have had to engage and turn around planes just like this off the coast of California. They are long-range Russian bombers. Planes like this one, which are known as the Bear in the Sky because it's equipped with 4 turbine-powered engines and is considered one of the fastest bombers in the world.
What Russia is doing in Ukraine and Crimea has a direct effect on what's happening in Asia Pacific. Some of the things we've seen is their long-range aviation and the increase in that. Those areas depicted in green. They've come with their long-range aviation out to the coast of California. They circumnavigated Guam.
Speaking from a Washington, D.C. think tank, which was later placed on YouTube, General Herbert Hawk Carlyle says not only has there been a significant increase in Russian forces over the Pacific in the air, but also with its ships as well. The general believes the increased activity is a show of force, but also to gather intelligence. He and others say Russia's actions are not being taken lightly.
The largest missile arsenals in the world are Russia, China, and North Korea in that order, and most of them are pointed at either us or our friends and allies. And so our ability to defend against a potential missile attack is one that is hugely a challenge. And you can see that when you look at what North Korea does even today with respect to their growing missile arsenal.
All media calls about the Russian military planes invading U.S. airspace are being directed to the North American Aerospace Defense Command. Major Beth Smith, the NORAD spokesperson, told me NORAD has intercepted in excess of 50 Russian long-range bomber aircraft over the last 5 years in order to visually identify them. She went on to tell me interaction between NORAD fighters with these types of aircraft are carried out routinely.
Now, the general did not give any details of the incidents, and neither would NORAD. However, someone is responding locally. In Fresno, we do have the 144th Fighter Wing with the California Air National Guard. That's right near the airport. And then we also have the Navy fighter jets down in Lemoore at Lemoore Naval Air Station. Monty, the general did add that the United States will continue to take these threats and challenges head on.
Well, I have to tell you, Eric, it is alarming, and the military is not even releasing how close they got to the coastline or how many planes.
They are not. They're not releasing how close they were or how many planes, but you may recall, I think it was back in 2007 that Vladimir Putin, president of Russia, had said that he would continue his missions in NATO areas that was considered off limits when it was the Soviet Union.
Shades of the Cold War all over again.
Possibly.
All right, Eric. Well, the general ended his talk by saying, as the United States faces budgetary problems with the military, our relationship with ally countries needs to get closer. He says gaining a better understanding of their challenges will help protect us as well.
And that's because it's happening to them too. The probing of U.S. defenses by Russian military aircraft off the coast of California is far from an isolated incident. If anything, Russia seems to be getting more aggressive. 2 weeks ago, the British Royal Air Force scrambled Typhoon fighters to shadow Russian long-range bombers approaching Scotland. On that same day, 2 Dutch F-16s intercepted 2 Russian bombers that entered a half-mile into Dutch airspace. And less than 2 weeks before that, a Russian warplane made several close passes near the U.S. Navy destroyer, the USS Donald Cook, in the Black Sea near the coast of Ukraine. The Pentagon called it a provocative move occurring at a time of escalating tensions between Russia, Ukraine, and NATO. And like Eric mentioned, we have 2 well-equipped military bases right here in Fresno County. The Air National Guard 144th Fighter Wing is located in Fresno. It is an ideal location because the Guard protects all of California. It's equipped with high-tech aircraft, including a new F-15 Eagle that was received mid-last year. And of course, there is also the Lemoore Naval Air Station. It's equipped with 16 F-18 strike fighter squadrons. The base houses more than 33,000 military men and women, and that is in Kings County.